Welcome to the Everything Yachting YouTube channel. Our goal is to help yacht buyers, yacht owners, and yacht sellers through interesting, educational, and informative discussions on topics that are anything and everything yachting related. Hello and welcome to Everything Yachting. Today, my special guest is Matt McHugh with Marlow Marine Sales Inc. Matt, do you have a middle name?
My middle name is Paul.
Paul. Matt? Do you go by Matthew P. McHugh? Or what do you go by?
Typically go by Matthew P. McHugh.
Okay, I did not know that. And I've known you for a little bit of time now. Yeah. I did not know that we had a P in your middle name.
My credit card statements say that. That's about it.
I've got a list of questions, things I want to talk about today.
Yeah.
I want to get to, at some point in time, upgrades, because we did make a video with Captain Tad previously, and I had a lot of inquiry on upgrades and conversations about upgrades from people that watched the video. So I thought I'd bring a fellow Marlow expert in here to talk about some upgrades at some point in time. But first, let's get to know Matt. So Matt, how did you get into the marine industry? How did your butt end up right there?
Well, I've always been, I've always loved boating. I've always loved the idea of boating. I've always loved what it offers. For me, being on the water, there's nothing better. I bought my first boat when I was 27, 28 years old, and
me too. Somewhere at the same time. Yeah. I grew up on them on lakes, but I owned my first one right about the same age.
Yeah, same. And people that don't have the same passion and the same love for it would always say, Matt, that's just losing money. I said, well, it's all how you think about it, right? I said, I take my boat out every single weekend. So for me, every single weekend is like a mini vacation. So how much money do you spend on a vacation, right? Mm-hmm. Well, over the course of the year, when I sold my boat, I think I lost $4,000 on it. But hey, I spend $4,000 on 1 week vacation every year. So if I can take a weekend vacation every year and be out $4,000 over the course of it, to me, that's money well spent.
Did you find that the boat, even if it was in your backyard, not a big journey? I don't know what size boat it was.
It was a 18-foot Sea Ray, but it got me out on the water.
All right, so you're out on the water. Did it recharge your batteries?
No.
It did not recharge your batteries?
No, we're talking about, the year 2005. And,
I'm not talking about the vessel. I'm talking about the operator.
Oh, the operator. Absolutely.
Because the reason why I asked that question is because a lot of my clients get into boating as a way to continue to do what they do 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, because it recharges their batteries. So in your 1 year ownership, your $4,000 net cost plus operating expenses, what benefits did it give you that might have actually generated more revenue? Because you just talked about the downside of losing revenue, but did it make you work an extra 2 hours a week or whatever? What did it do for you personally?
Sure. So I was owning, I owned my own business back then. I was running a family business with my mother. We owned a private school. Mm-hmm. So as you can imagine, a private school consists of, that's not a 9 to 5 job. There's, we had 300 students at the school, 200 families. It was constant, and it was a 24-hour a day job. If a parent needed something, if a kid needed something, I was there, I was available. Everybody at our school had access to my mother or my cell phone. So getting out on the boat on the weekend was usually my chance to disconnect. And recharge and reset and get ready to go back in Monday morning at 7:30 and start greeting families and parents and students coming in. So absolutely.
Where was your central hub from that, and how far south, how far north, east, west did you go with that, so our audience can understand that experience for you? And then I'm going to ask, where have you gone since then?
Sure. So back then, I pretty much just kind of hovered around Sarasota, Bradenton, which, Gulf Coast of Florida, hopped around between some of the different sandbars, went to different restaurants and just hung out with family and friends, and enjoyed just kind of the West Coast of Florida, cruising up and down that limited area. Since then, and since being in this industry now for 4 years, I have done... let's see. I did my longest one single stretch was 25 hours straight from Pensacola down to the Marlow Yard when we were moving a boat. So cut straight across the Gulf of Mexico.
Is that a 58?
That was a 58E. Yes, it was. And then I did a week on a 66 Marlow over to the Bahamas, helping a captain move a boat for one of my clients and tagging along so he didn't have to pay a mate. I said, I would love this experience. I would love to be on the boat for a week. So don't pay somebody. Let's go do this. And so that was an amazing trip and very enjoyable. So much fun.
So if you had been boating for more than a year and progressed in business and bought a boat of 50, 60, 70 feet in that same backyard experience, how would that, let's just pretend it was that 58 Marlow and you owned it and you're in Sarasota, where would you have gone? Where would you have taken it? How would it have been different than your smaller boat other than the dollars? Because we understand that they're more expensive.
Sure, absolutely. I'm a big fan of the Gulf Coast of Florida, from the Panhandle all the way down to the Keys. I think it's a beautiful area for boating, for just kind of relaxing and enjoying it. So if I had that boat, I certainly would have done more up along the Panhandle all the way down to the Keys. Spent some time in the Keys. I love exploring the islands. I didn't get a chance to explore a lot of them when I did my trip over with the captain on the 66, but we certainly saw a lot of it from Nassau down to the Exumas. And what a great spot to be. I mean, I took pictures of it and I sent pictures to people, and it just doesn't do it justice. You look at it, you look at your camera, and you say, "What? This isn't what I'm looking at. How do I share this experience with other people?" So I would definitely have done a lot more of that, having a boat of that size and that nature that I could spend months at a time on.
And bring those close family members so their feet get wet, the sand gets between their toes, and they actually understand it.
Absolutely.
Because it is so much prettier in person. Sometimes you're in the Bahamas and there's 17 colors of water around a boat. And depending upon your hull color, if it's a seafoam green, for example, it will literally disappear and you'll just see kind of a rub rail in the water elevated up, and you lose the ability to see where the hull and the water meet, which to me is a magical thing that I don't see anywhere else but that. So what's your best memory from a trip on any boat that you've ever had?
That's a tough one.
Memory or experience?
Yeah. I think it would have to be that same trip. I think that trek across. You talk about the different colors of the water, and cutting from Florida over to Chub Key is actually where we went to clear customs and do all of that. And yeah, it's amazing the different colors and variations you see as you're going through the different depths and different areas of the Atlantic, and then of course over into the islands.
What's the deepest water you remember seeing?
I think the deepest water I remember seeing was 600, 700 feet maybe.
Oh, it gets a lot deeper than that.
Yeah. Well, that's sure. When I looked at it, I mean, the captain and I were taking turns. So, there may have been times where it was deeper when he was paying attention to it and I wasn't paying as much attention. I was just
don't worry about the depth out there because it's pretty deep.
Yeah.
Did you notice any change in the Gulf Stream when you crossed that? Was that an event for you, or was it pretty much nothing? Did you, track a weather window, or did you just go? What was that trip about?
We pretty much just went. We tracked a little bit. We did hit some rough seas, cutting across in the middle of the night. But no, nothing terrible. Nothing the boat couldn't handle anyway. It was uncomfortable for a couple hours, but the majority of the trip was good. We wanted to cut some time out of it at one point. So one of the nice things about the Marlow, you have the option of getting up and running a little faster if you want to. So we cut a couple hours out of the trip and ran it a little faster for a few hours, just to get there and get in before sunset, be able to get our customs cleared and get everything working on there. So we were in a little bit of a time crunch just because the clients were going to be flying in. So I was helping him move the boat to the Bahamas. The clients were then going to fly in and spend a couple weeks aboard it. So we were on a little bit of a timetable. So watching the weather window, we didn't do a whole lot of that. We did one day where we anchored off at a different spot because the winds were whipping it pretty hard. So we tried to find a little cove to tuck into for anchorage. But other than that, we just went. Man.
What were you driving? Because I've been offshore when it's uncomfortable, so I get it. At some point in time in 10-foot seas or whatever.
Sure.
I want to be driving the boat because that's the most comfortable spot.
Yeah.
Where were you at when you had it? What was the wind and sea conditions? I've been out in some pretty nasty stuff, not intentionally, mind you. But when you're doing a 4-day passage, weather can pop up, a thunderstorm can pop up.
Absolutely. I was sleeping during the roughest part of it. So I was down in the starboard side stateroom, tucked into the lower bunk. And, it's interesting. It was a very weird feeling. In my dream, I felt myself floating up into the air and then coming back down to the ground. So then I woke up a few hours later and I said, "Oh yeah, we hit some waves out there for sure." I went up to captain. I said, "Hey man, what were you taking us through?" He said, "Oh, well, we're probably 6 or 7 feet we were going." I said, "Oh, that makes sense." I felt like I was floating in my dream. He said, "Oh, that makes sense."
It all depends on the direction of the waves, and how it handles the boat for sure. So, let's just jump around, a couple things. What are your yachting dreams? What's your career look like in your future? Do you want to be a big boat owner at some point in time? Do you want to travel on boats? Do you want to sell boats? If I said dream, what is that in this industry for you?
So when I buy the the Powerball tickets and I start visualizing all of that, I would absolutely love to be a big boat owner at some point. But if I am not a big boat owner, something that at least I can go up and down the coast, I can cut across the lake and still go to the Bahamas. So something big enough to just get me out on the water, be able to explore a little bit wider range than just my Sarasota Bradenton area that I'm used to on my personal boat. But selling boats is such a wonderful experience. I really enjoy meeting the new people. I enjoy the lifestyle. I enjoy learning about what other people. I mean, the people we talk to and the people we deal with come from all walks of life, right? And I love introducing the lifestyle to people that are just coming into it, and I love learning about the lifestyle from people that have been doing it for decades. And that to me is one of the most enjoyable parts of this job. I'm very much a people person, and so I just enjoy doing it. So I plan on doing this for the next 20 years. My son's 11 years old. I already talk to him about, you want to do this someday? And then you just give me a kickback of anything that you've taken of my own clients. And so I'm already starting the next phase of life when I can retire but still make some money out of this industry.
I don't know how I'll ever retire because it's too enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's really is fun. It's fun being on the boats. It's fun getting to meet great people. It's fun talking about boats. I just love it. And I don't know what else I would want to do personally. Boat shows, right? We go to, it depends on the year, but 5 or 6 boat shows a year. What's for people out here who've never been to a boat show before, never been aboard a Marlow Explorer, if you're sincerely interested about getting aboard a Marlow, we invite you to come to our house. That's where we can show you, 5, 10, 20 of them, spend all day with you, not rush through things, and show it to you the way that we think Marlow should be presented in water and out of water with as much detail as you care to learn. If you're saying, no, I want to go look at 5 brands and I want to go to a boat show, what's your favorite boat show and why?
Yeah, well, to piggyback on what you said, just the time that we are able to spend with people that are interested to learn about the boats. Because of that, the West Palm Beach Boat Show is probably my favorite boat show. It's not quite as busy and crowded as the Miami and the Fort Lauderdale boat shows. And so it does allow us to be a little bit more relaxed with the clients that are coming to look and wanting to learn more about the boats. Miami and Fort Lauderdale, we have so many people there wanting to see the boats, so many people showing up. We've got a line. I usually don't even take a bathroom or a lunch break at those shows because I don't want anybody walking away and not having an opportunity to get aboard our boats. So those 2 boat shows, Miami and Fort Lauderdale, are just, we really have to keep it a little bit tighter time window of how long we're spending with each person. And so that's why I like the Palm Beach Boat Show a little bit more. It's a little bit smaller show, not quite as crowded, and we can spend that extra time with clients that are there wanting to learn more about the product. Boat
shows for us are tough because we have a very beautiful girl, right?
Yeah,
Our Marlow Explorers are stunning. So anybody walking down the dock generally wants to get aboard. We're not one of those companies that says, show us a financial statement that says you can buy one. We're happy to get you aboard because maybe one day you'll be able to if you're not able now, or maybe somebody who would be able to. And, we've sold a lot of boats by treating people the way we'd like to be treated. I guess is the easiest way to say it. But with that, not everybody can be served at the same time.
Right.
I can't put 100,000 people on 3 boats, right? So we have an appointment thing. And sometimes if you don't know this, okay, I'm going to tell you right now, if you want to come see us at a boat show, please call us. Please make an appointment. That will reduce all of our frustrations because if you show up with your buddies and need to get aboard right now at 11:15 and we have a 4-hour wait, that's tough. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that is how it gets to those shows. So again, if you're really interested, plan A, come see us here at Marlow Marine. We are south of Tampa, north of Sarasota on the west coast of Florida. If you're going to a boat show, make an appointment. Give us a call, 1-800-362-2657. Plan ahead a little bit and happiness will follow, I assure you, because we want to get you aboard the boats and we want to give you a VIP tour. We want to have alone time with you aboard the boat to walk through at a reasonable pace. And when there's 100 people waiting outside and you just showed up, it's hard to accommodate everybody.
Well, and another reason why, again, some people don't realize this, but the boats that we have at our shows, we don't have any stock boats. We don't have any inventory boats. So every boat that is at a show is usually the newest baby of one of our owners, one of our clients,
Correct.
one of our Marlow family members.
Just delivered or yet to be delivered.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, part of the agreement with allowing us to use those boats in the shows to promote our product is we will not let people wander around the boat
Correct.
unsupervised and without, us there to make sure that they are being respectful and properly.
We treat it like our own. We
Absolutely.
watch it like it's our own. So,
Correct.
that's the model there. And I agree. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Favorite build to date? You've built a few Marlows.
I have. Yeah.
Favorite and why?
My favorite build to date was, let's see, that boat just got delivered in May of this year. So
66.
So 66, and that's my favorite one. That one's got a special place in my heart. It was a son who's a few years younger than I am. He came with his parents to my very first boat show ever 4 years ago, the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show. They had never been aboard a Marlow. I spent time with them. Spent a year and a half, almost 2 years, keeping in touch with them coming down here whenever they were in the area. And so, eventually they pulled the trigger. And it's funny, they said, "So are we your very first contract for a new build?" I said, "You are." I said, "Does that scare you or, what?" They said, "A little bit, but we're excited to go through the process with you." And I said, I could not have asked for a better first contract for a new build. They were great.
What's their experience, and what's the experience of the people that backed you up at Marlow? Because if you come to Marlow and you meet a new broker, which we have a few new brokers, were you alone and just had to figure it out yourself, or did you have support behind you?
Well, I definitely had support behind me. Obviously you, Rod and Jack are very helpful to me. Joe, our project manager and new build coordinator here at our headquarters, was super helpful to me as well. The goal is to make the process as painless and enjoyable for everybody, the salesperson, the client, and everybody else that's involved with it. So everybody was great in helping out with that. That one coincided with the 58 that you and I were building together. So that helped as well, because you and I worked closely with that one. And then I had a little bit more of my own individual work with the 66. So that was very helpful also, just kind of going through some of that stuff with you as a partner on the one build, and then having that one going on kind of simultaneously. But everybody around here was great to work with. My clients, we're very happy with the process. There's times where everybody gets frustrated, right? Because you're getting anxious, and we want to make sure that before you take the boat, everything's done. The commissioning is all done. And so, when the boat gets here, everybody wants it to just take the keys as quickly as possible. But it's a process, and we want to make sure that when you do leave, you are happy. So we try not to rush through any of that, and we try to make sure that we're getting the job done properly. So when you do leave, you leave and you enjoy it. And so they left from here, from the west coast of Florida, down around the base of Florida and up to the Carolinas, which is where their home base is. And they did a straight shot on that when they finally were able to take it. We ran it around here for a few weeks to make sure we did a little shakedown, and then off they went. And they said it was a great journey. That
commissioning process can take 30 to 60 days, depending upon the complexity, upgrades, maybe first-time upgrades. There's a lot of new trends out there with products that are coming onto these boats that we want to make sure, go through our due diligence phase before we just say goodbye.
Right.
And it's really nice to get them to cruise this beautiful area for a few weeks, because oftentimes after the orientation period, it's not something that might be broken. It's something that they don't know how to use yet, or they forgot where the power switch was, or
this breaker or that breaker, right?
So, there's a lot in systems. So let's ask about their experience. Was that their first yacht? Did they have yachts before that?
They came into our boat from a 40 foot Rybovich, something in the 40 foot range, I believe, is what their Rybovich was. And as most of our clients, the family's expanding, more grandkids are coming along, and they needed more sleeping space, more area for entertaining and having the family fly in and out. So they've got 3 children and multiple grandchildren, and so that was their goal. But they've been boating for forever, and then this was their next step for the next stage of their life.
And the 66 is one of my favorite sizes. I like what you can do with 4 staterooms in that boat. I like what you can do with the crew quarters in that boat. The range, the speed. To me, it's just right. It's just right for a lot of reasons. So I understand why you like that one.
Yeah.
Definitely a good cruising boat. What were some features you like? I want to get into industry trends. I want to get into features that you liked on that boat or any of your builds.
Okay.
And then I want to talk about upgrades.
Sure.
One of the requests I think I touched on earlier was for us to talk about popular upgrades on these Marlow Explorers. So however you want to handle that, I want to sit back. I want to hear from you from features you liked on the boats you built, industry trends for what you've seen. Because how long ago did you start here?
4 years ago.
Okay. So in the last 4 years, things have changed, right?
Sure.
Just bring us up to speed for what you've seen from your chair right there.
Yeah. So goodness, what a weird time for me to come into the industry, right? I mean, that was I hit the ground running with the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show in 2019. St. Pete Boat Show was the end of 2019. Miami Boat Show right as COVID was starting to come around, and so we did the Miami Boat Show kind of hesitantly. What's happening? That's a big show that has people coming from all over the world flying in, and that was really early in. What is this and how are we handling this? And so we did that boat show, and then that was the last boat show I did for the next 2 years.
Right.
So it was definitely an interesting time. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make it through those 2 years, but as we saw during that time frame, the people that were going to travel internationally, do big vacations, do those types of things that all of a sudden they couldn't do. Where was a safe place that they could still, like we talked about earlier with my 18-foot Sea Ray, where is the place I can still take a vacation and keep isolated and keep myself protected and follow the rules and restrictions that were going on? Well, the boating industry took off, as we all know. And so that was, again, kind of a very interesting time. And we're just now really starting to see it kind of level back out. It's still very active. Still a lot of people, I think there's maybe a lot of people that got into boating during that COVID that weren't necessarily lovers of it and then fell in love with it.
I think a lot of people got into boating early.
Yeah.
I saw somebody with a sports car the other day, and the license plate was something like, was my 401k or killed my 401k or whatever it was, right? And I just thought it's funny because I did see that. I saw people buying yachts earlier than they probably would, or bigger than they probably would, or refusing to not have one. Whereas, sometimes somebody would have a boat A, and they sell it, and then they recuperate, and then they buy boat B with a 6-month gap in between. COVID, there was no gap. It was, I'm not being locked in my house with nowhere to go. I'm going to have my boat, right? So that increased demand. I have not seen a lot of boats coming on the market. What I've seen is people that bought used ones that may not have bought the right boat or learned it wasn't the right boat, ordering new boats with us.
Yeah.
Or coming from a different brand, coming into one of our boats, looking for something, more comfortable, higher quality, whatever the features and benefits are that they wanted to have from what we offered. So that's something I saw. In a trend of change, I would say that younger people got into it. People got into bigger. The older population might have hit the pause button a little bit. Maybe the ones that were, most concerned about, the virus. Yeah. And then once that kind of got behind them or got in that rearview mirror, they came out and they've been buying boats, over the past year. So it's interesting to see these, trends of size or demographic or age, whatever you want to call it. It definitely goes. And I would say that on the technology side, people want to anchor out more because they like that isolation. They found that isolation during COVID. They didn't want to just go to the marina with 10 people around them. They wanted to go to the
You can actually leave your curtains open, right? Anchor out, leave your curtains open.
Right. So as we talk about some of the upgrades, I think we have to understand and note that these are upgrades that 5 years ago might not have been as high of a priority for people, that today they are, based on new people into the marine industry and maybe a little bit of a change in how some of these boats are being used, longer stays aboard, more remote stays aboard. Did you have anything else on industry trends or features you like before I roll into some of the upgrades that I'd like to discuss?
No, we can roll into upgrades. I mean, that's the exciting stuff, right? Especially when you're talking about a Marlow type of boat where you have so much personal preference and so much discretion in how you want to build it, how you want it laid out, the upgrades you want. So that's a fun topic. So I'm happy to jump right into that.
So look, in a prior podcast, I've told everybody that, I bleed Marlow Blue. I love the brand. I love the boats. I've helped customers buy many different types of boats. So I don't project my likes on your likes or maybe your budget or whatever it is. Maybe you want to go way bigger. Maybe you want to go way smaller. If we mesh, I'll help you find what you want. Matt would do the same thing.
Yeah, right.
So when we talk about everything yachting, we're not talking about everything Marlow. It really is everything yachting. So I will try to draw a line in the sand and say, maybe you don't want to put a $40,000 spot zero water maker, spot free system and water maker on your 18-foot boat, right. Whereas you might want to put that on a boat that you're going to use more like a house and get the benefit of it. So it's an educational conversation because some of you have never been on a yacht before and some of you might have owned 50 or 100 of them. So we're kind of doing a broad conversation here. So let's just start with post-COVID upgrades, okay? For me, zero speed stability has grown huge. For me, I would also say water makers and spot zero systems. Okay. What would you like to touch on any of those three? And then maybe I'll come in and talk about a little bit more on top of that as well.
Sure. The stabilization, there's been a lot of advances in that. Again, going back to my clients that just finished their 66, they went with the CMC stabilizers. So it's a combination fin as well as zero speed. I believe you had a couple boats that had that on there as well. So far, they've been very happy with that. So you don't have the extra space in the engine room or crew area or wherever you need to put it for a seakeeper or some gyro style zero speed. So that's been something that I know a lot of clients that I've been speaking to have been very interested in doing because it still gives you that capability without taking up additional space interior. So that's definitely something that I've seen growing in popularity and interest of clients I've been speaking to.
I've had people retrofit those just so we're all on the same page.
Sure,
so if you're looking for a boat and Matt says you got to have CMC fins, or the takeaway is I need to have zero speed stability on my whatever, what I would like to do is have a conversation with you about your plans so we can confirm that the need is there, not just the wants, right? And then we can talk about how to refit that or retrofit or supplement, right? Because there's a lot of things that can be done to take a boat who may not have stability at all, add stabilizers or retrofit, let's just say Naiad hydraulic fins to zero speed fins of electric or hydraulic propulsion, depending upon what hydraulic power, depending upon what we're talking about. So just so everybody who may not have had a yacht before, we're talking about the roll side to side and what a boat can do to minimize that. If a vessel is moving forward, it has some sort of hull stability. Okay. What we're talking about is how it keeps itself stable while it's in motion, or how it keeps itself stable when it's not in motion. So they have gyros. They could be air-cooled or water-cooled that rotate, okay, to help offset that motion from side to side with the inertia energy that it creates. And then we have fins, which stick down in the water, that as the boat moves forward, create resistance that then can turn to keep that boat level, okay? And then we have fins that are a little bit larger, a little bit different in shape or style, that can move when the boat's not in motion to keep that from rocking side to side. So as people have wanted to anchor out more, i.e. not in motion, and be comfortable, okay? So there's more boats and more coves and more comfort desired, and they want to stay longer. That's when we talk about zero speed fins or gyros, and that's where we talk about water makers.
Yeah. Now
there's another change that's occurred in the industry of a lot more ceramic coating on boats. That's come, from my experience, from the automotive industry or airplane industry, where they don't want to paint or they don't want to wash, or they don't want to use caustic materials. They come up with all these things that help reduce the amount of rubbing and polishing you have to do. Yeah. It's not cheap, right? We just had a 58 done in the yard for somewhere around $20,000, whereas a sports car I owned, I had done for $5,000 or less. But you can just hit it with a hose and not dry it if the water coming out of your hose has reduced particulate in it, okay? And that's kind of how that works. Mm-hmm. We're talking about a regular water hose having 1,000 parts per million conversationally, and a spot free system having 5 or 10 or 20 parts per million, so that I don't have to dry it because I don't have water spots on it when I'm done. And having it ceramic coated means that the water and grime doesn't stick to it. So maybe a 6-hour boat wash turns into a 1-hour rinse with no need to chamois. That's important if you're an owner and you're pulling up at 4 p.m. and you'd like to rinse it off before you go to dinner. Okay, that's really what we're talking about. And that's not on a 18-foot Sea Ray.
Right.
We're talking about that on specifically our expertise is diesel-powered motor yachts, to oversimplify the conversation. But we sail, we do runabouts, I do wake surfing, we do fishing. So we can really have an expertise on everything yachting as we're chatting here. So I like the Wanamaker for sure.
Yeah.
You can add one aftermarket if the boat doesn't have one. I like the spot-free rinse system. You can add that aftermarket, right? It's power, it's water, it's a space for it. I like the 0-speed electric fins personally because they're not a big elephant in a room all the time when you're not using them. They just are under water. The contrast to that is the big elephant in the room being a gyro doesn't have drag, where the fins do have drag. So again, just like airplanes, you got to know your mission and you got to talk to an expert to talk about the features and benefits that it has, so you can make sure you're buying the right one for your mission. And that's what we're offering, right?
And with the 0-speed and the aftermarket stuff, it's important to figure out which boat you want. If it doesn't have that, spend some time on the boat before jumping into spending the money and putting it in. I had a client that bought a 66 and it did not have 0-speed, and all of his other boats prior to it had 0-speed. And he said, I need 0-speed. And I said, okay, well, I called one of the local reps. I said, how much would it cost to retrofit this? Give me a ballpark. And I think the ballpark came in right around $125,000 to retrofit, get it done. So I said to my client, this is what it will cost ballpark. You've never been on this boat. This is a brand new boat for you. Go cruise it for 3 or 4 or 5 months. Then come back and let me know if you want me to help coordinate this. And he cruised it for a few months, and he called me back and he said, thank you for saving me the money. I don't feel the need for it. It's a comfortable boat. We've been enjoying it. But again, I don't think they were anchoring out a lot. I think they were mostly at the docks. They were doing, island
Protected
hopping, marina
harbor,
to marina. Absolutely.
or underway. Yep.
So, knowing, correct. That boat did have fins on it. It didn't have the 0-speed stabilization with the gyro. So, I think you do the same thing as I do. When I'm working with clients, my job is not to see how much money I can get out of you. Now, that wouldn't have been any money in my pocket. That would have been obviously straight to the vendor that would have done that work. But I want to protect you.
It would have been in the future if you got that listing and sold it for more value because it added money to it. But you're exactly right what you're saying. You're giving them good advice so that they make good decisions.
Right.
The hard top conversation. Okay.
Right.
When I first got here, there was a lot of Marlows with soft tops on them. I don't want a soft top boat. I'm not buying that boat. Hard top, $60,000. Add it when you want. Okay, but I'm going to order it right away and I'm going to do it. Please don't do that. Please cruise the boat for 3 months, okay? Then tell me if you want the hard top made at the factory. We'll ship it here. We'll put it on. Guess how many hard tops I put on? 0. Because everybody realizes it's awesome and it's not really needed and the boat's fine the way it is. Yeah. So you don't know that till you know it. So you've got timing parameters, you've got budget parameters, you've got volume or staterooms or speed, whatever your parameters are, right? Come to us, talk to the experts. We're going to help you get what you want. And we're going to tell you, hey, you got to have that hardtop. I get it. Please go cruise on it for a little bit. Yeah. Let's confirm that before the time and dollars are spent.
Yeah.
And if you want to do it, awesome. We'll help you do it. Right?
Absolutely.
Same thing. I sold a 72 to a guy who had to have the 0-speed fins. They cruised it. They put the 0-speed fins on. They cruised it for a few more years. It added value to the boat when I sold it.
Sure. Absolutely.
So, I can have that conversation of you're spending 120 and you're probably going to get 100 back in 5 years because you did make a material improvement to the boat. What's another upgrade that you think is important?
For me, and it's I don't know, sometimes I think it's a little basic, but is the engine upgrades for me. Giving clients the opportunity to choose what engine package they want, what horsepower they want. We have boats with Cummins in them, Caterpillars, Volvos, MAN engines. What am I missing?
MTU, John Deere, Volvo.
Right. So, I think it's great to give clients opportunities to look at that and weigh the pros and cons of each one of them. I'm sorry?
Bad one?
Yeah,
That's another one.
Yeah. So
You
I
give
think
me
that's
long enough,
great.
we'll keep thinking more.
I know. What did 100 V1 have in it? It had
Bad one.
Oh, that's what that one
Yeah.
was. Okay, yeah. So I think that's great because it gives clients opportunities to put in their boat what they want, how they're cruising it.
It's all about the mission, right? It's
Correct.
not our mission. We don't build a ton of stock boats to say, buy this, take it or leave it. We take orders from special people to build exactly what they want, what they envisioned. And a lot of times that turns into 3 or 4 as the family grows and the love for the grows. I think our record is 5 or 6, where they started maybe used or new and just kept getting bigger or smaller and worked their way up and down. So if we help you get what you want, you're happy. If the resale value is good, you're happy. That's how we get to that, where people can do more than one and really use their creative paintbrush to build their floating work of art. And that's what we offer.
Absolutely.
Right. So engines, I agree. I'm a big fan of the bigger engines in any boat that you're buying. If you're buying a 53 Marlow, I'm going to want you to have 800 to 1,000 horsepower engines versus the standard ones. Same thing with a 58 going up. And the reason is I want you to be able to safely outrun a storm if you get stuck out there. And I want you to reasonably be able to market your vessel to the entire buyer market. And if the guy wants to go slow, he can always buy the boat with the bigger engines and manage that fuel burn with the throttles. But if the guy wants to go fast and you put the smaller engines in, he's not your buyer, never, ever, right? So I would always challenge that. I'm going to take the standard engine option when someone comes to me because I want to talk that through. I want to make sure that your airplane fits your mission, right? And speed or range.
And there's benefits to having the larger engine, even if you are still going to cruise it at the slower speeds. You're putting less load on your engine, right? Your fuel burn's still going to be spectacular in those slower speeds and lower RPMs. So there's just a lot of benefits to having it, not just the ability to then get up and get out of the storm or get into the marina before sunset or any of those other things. So those are all reasons why I think the engine upgrades and options are one of my favorite things to dive into with clients.
Yeah, the downsides are oil changes are more expensive because you got a bigger block of iron and you got more oil in it, right? When you run fast, you burn more fuel. That's if you're wide open throttle. When you're running at lower loads, that's not the case. You actually can save fuel on that. It might be a little bit heavier, but all that factored in leads to a better resale value.
Yeah.
We've done this hundreds of times. So again, chat with us about that. Fly bridge, semi-enclosed, command bridge. What's Matt McHugh? Matt P. McHugh. What's Matt P. McHugh going to buy when he hits that Powerball?
Oh, man, that's such a tough one. I go back and forth with it constantly in my head. They all have their pros and cons.
I bought a command bridge.
I know. I was going to say, I think
I liked it a lot.
At the end of the day, I think the command bridge would probably be my preference because you can still open up the side doors. You can open up the back door. You can open up the overhead hatches. You can still get a feeling of being out on the water. You can still hear the waves crashing outside and the dolphins jumping in the waves. You can still get all of that experience with the command bridge, but it gives you, especially for those long journeys, it just gives you
So hold on a second.
a great space.
The boat's being washed. Brian, don't worry about that. If we get a little bit of background noise from the boat washers, that's just part of life, right? I think there's a showing on the boat tomorrow, so they got to get it clean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will say that I think our viewpoint is slightly flawed on the command bridge.
Okay.
And it's because we're still working. There's a lot of value if you care about a cell phone, talking quietly, air-conditioned workspace while you're out there cruising in a command bridge that we, as people that are still working, have high on a priority list. Because how nice is it when I run a command bridge, a phone call comes from my favorite customer and I can take the call. I'm not running downstairs, trying to get into a quiet space.
Right.
Whereas on a weekend, it is really nice to be on a fly bridge when my phone may not be ringing and truly have that recharge time of seeing everything and feeling everything in my face. So this is about your mission, not ours. Yeah. So are you retired? Are you still working? Those are things that we will want to talk to you about when you're trying to figure out, do I want open or enclosed up there or a modification of in between? And that's what a semi-enclosed is.
Yeah.
All right. So really that's up to you. Galley Pilot House custom arrangements. I believe you had a pretty custom arrangement in that 66. So talk to us about some things that your customers have asked. We've had to go back to the drawing board and exceeded expectations.
Well, I think that Yeah, I got something in my throat.
Is there any water in the fridge over there, guys? Yeah,
This
is my coffee. I'm not sharing with you.
No, don't share with me. It's all right. I'll clear it up. This area really is great. There's a lot of flexibility in the galley and the pilot house area. Whether you want a full helm station, whether you want a small little helm station tucked over to one of the sides. That's one of the things we did on my 66.
Thanks, Eric.
So my 66, they did a completely open fly bridge. So they wanted to have an availability. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. They wanted to have availability to have something down below that they could still run the boat from if they did get into bad weather, hairy weather, anything else. So they did a small little helm station with all the controls they needed, a small monitor tucked right over the port side of the galley. Mm-hmm. And then they did a full galley with a breakfast table as well as a full U-shaped table. So again, their family's growing, so they wanted plenty of space for everybody to be able to sit and eat. Beautiful teak stools at the tabletop. And so they did a lot of cool stuff there. Another one of my clients eliminated the formal seating in the galley and just did an entire wraparound galley with an island in the middle with stools around that. They said, we don't sit at our formal table at home. We're not going to sit at the formal table on our boat. This is how we sit and entertain in the galley, stools, standing around the bar. And that's what they do. So I think that's a really cool spot to see how people envision it and what they can come up with. A few minor changes here and there. You know, what you do in one area affects the next area in building a house, a boat, anything else, but especially in boats. So, you know, there were some things that they wanted that we might have to say, well, that won't work, but let's try this. And so the creativity and the teamwork to get that all put together is something that I think is a really cool part of the upgrade options as well.
Well, when you're building a house and you decide to go from a 3-stateroom to a 4-stateroom, that's called building a bigger house, right? Mm-hmm. How's that work in boats? Have you ever had somebody come in with a 53 order and then decide to go to a 58 because they wanted that extra room or whatever?
I have not yet. And in fact, I had a client of mine that had a 58, bought a 58 in brokerage, the one you and I worked on together. They bought their 58, and their goal from the time they bought that brokerage boat was, we're going to cruise this for a few years and we're going to build the 62 or the 66. That's our dream. That's our goal. That's what we're going to do. So, you know, 2 years into it, when they called and said, all right, we're ready to pull the trigger and start building the next one. We know what we like, what we want to change of our current boat. So we want to get started with our next and final boat. I said, okay, great. Come on in. I'll get the 62 paperwork ready for you. And he said, no, you know, the 58 has worked just fine for us. It's our family's not expected to grow anymore. They had the kids and the grandkids, and nobody was expecting to have more kids. And so they said, all right, the 58's really done everything that we've wanted it to do. So I said, are you sure? Because the 62, you know, gives you more. But they said, no, the 58's great. So, you know, whatever, we built that boat for them just how they wanted it. And that was the right boat for them. So they had a great time with their first one. They're having a great time with their second one. And yeah, so that's it's all part of the fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Painting, superstructure, hull paint. You know, standard, the boats are not painted. Mm-hmm. Almost everybody paints the hull, like 99 out of 100 paint the hull. What about the superstructure? Why would you tell somebody to paint the superstructure or not? You know,
typically, you know, if you want to paint the hull is easier or better to paint because the hull is more likely to get a little bit of a bump or a scratch or something on it at some point during the course of it. And blending paint is a lot easier than blending gel coat that might have faded over the years. So painting the hull is something I always recommend to every one of my clients. Painting the superstructure, you don't have to worry quite as much about that. You're not doing most of the time any kind of a color that you're going to have to worry as much about noticing fading of gel coat and things of that nature. So that's really just a personal preference. You know, paint is always easier to maintain and take care of than the gel coat. Yep. And so that's just a personal preference on.
For me, it's about the client's mission, right? Mm-hmm. It's how much dollars do I want to spend now? What do I want to maintain on an annual budget for the boat? Right. How long am I going to own it? And where am I going to go? Okay. If I'm going to the moon in it, I want it painted because I don't have people there to help me wax it and wash it and buff it, right? Because I'm very far away. If I'm going to own it for 2 years, maybe I don't want to put that extra capital into it because I might not get it back out. If I'm going to own it for 20 years, it's probably going to be painted at some time, and it's cheaper to paint it now new than to take everything off of the boat and sand it and scuff it and do all the stuff you got to do to repaint it again at that time used. The paint cost goes way up. So it really depends on the mission.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
once we know the mission, we can give proper advice as to what you should do and what your return on investment will be.
Right.
Because of it. So, boosting transformers, second air conditioning pumps, and a second generator are some big upgrades that almost everybody goes for. Of those, what's most important to you?
Well, goodness, again, are we talking about what's most important to me based on how I'm going to be cruising it or how the owner's going to be cruising it?
However you want to answer it, because we've got everybody watching, right?
That's
so
true.
you can decide if you pick to the guy that to speak to the guy that knows everything or knows nothing or in between.
The power boosters are great because if you are traveling around different marinas, depending on where you're traveling, some of the islands may not have real strong power coming in, depending on how far down the dock you are from the main source of power coming in. So that's great to give you the extra boost if you need it. What was the other one you just mentioned?
Second air conditioning pump.
Second air conditioning pumps. Again, the goal of being on the boat is what? Enjoying life and being comfortable and everything else. So, we're big, and I think a lot of manufacturers are starting to do this more, but redundancy is crucial. When you're on a boat, there's going to be a lot of times where you're 10 miles, 20 miles, 50 miles offshore. Even if you're just cruising up the coast, you might cut out 10 miles to go up and not have to worry about intercoastal waterway, not have to worry about no wake zones, right? So you're going to go out and you're just going to put your autopilot in and start trekking. So having redundancy and having backup pumps and having backup systems is great for. Nobody wants to be 10 miles out and have the heat or the air conditioning go out if it's a hot summer day in Florida, right? Anybody that's cruising Florida knows that. So I think all of those types of things are wonderful to have. Again, when I'm talking to clients and I'm talking about things I would recommend or things I say, this is completely up to you. Those are things I still recommend and say, these are things that you're going to want. You may not care about spending the money now, but you're going to care that you didn't spend the money when the time comes that you need it.
I modified a business that I bought to serve the customers on their greatest need. And, I bought a boat washing company. I had 30 people that were washing boats. And I had a captain and a mechanic, and I converted that into sales organization and a service organization to take care of the things. Think about it. If you're at your house, and I probably said this before, but it's important. If you're at your house and your air conditioner goes out and you live in Florida, is that your house anymore? Or are you getting a hotel for the night?
Right? Hotel for sure.
You're going to call somebody and you hope they show up. How about your toilets? How about your fresh water, right? So when we're talking about this on a boat and you're going to be more remote or in the middle of the ocean, we like to have something called redundancies, meaning I've got part A in a box and it's ready to go. And if it breaks, I got part B in a box with a switch and I can just use part B and I'm still cool.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about when we're talking about a second air conditioning pump, right? Air conditionings on these boats are chiller based. They use salt water or raw water to cool them. And a pump needs to make that water flow through the chiller so that it can provide air conditioning inside the boat through the air handlers. If that pump, one component, goes out, what do? Right? Well, you don't have air conditioning. So we can build one with a second one already plumbed in. Yeah. You could obviously buy one and put it in your lazarette and carry it around. All that's options for having some sort of redundancy so that day one of my 4-month trip to the Bahamas and my air conditioner breaks, I don't have to turn around and cancel Christmas. I get to continue to go and have fun. The boats come standard with multiple redundancies on steering and a lot of other parts in the boat. And again, if you're interested on a Marlow yacht or any type of a yacht, and you want to work with somebody who can go through and help you identify if that boat is fit for your mission, that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
And we can talk about it for 5 years before you're ready to buy. That's part of the reason for the podcast, so we can get your education up. And when you finally sell that business in anywhere Idaho, then you already have a connection with somebody who's helped you out and educated you, so that when you're ready, the trust is already there and we can get what you want. We've narrowed it down. We know I've got to have a 2-stateroom. It's got to do 20 knots. It's got to be under $2 million. I want to be able to resell it in 4 years and not get killed, and I need to be able to cross this distance on a whatever passage that I want to do. We can help you find that.
Absolutely.
And these upgrades that we're talking about, they can be upgraded in some instances on a used boat, right? Water makers, water heaters, stabilizers, spot zero systems, second air conditioning, boost pumps, all that type of stuff. Whereas an engine, right? If that has a Cummins 600 horsepower engine in it and you want to go fast and I need to put C18s with 1,000 horsepower in it, that's probably not going to economically happen. Right. So that boat's now off
time to buy
the
a new
list,
boat.
right?
Yeah, time to buy a different
time
boat.
to look at a different boat. And
Yeah.
that's what we're kind of circling back to when we talk about important upgrades. When you're building one, you want that one that anybody can buy with the bigger engines, you know? And that's one of the things I would say most people who walk by our boats at the boat show who've never been on one, okay, they look at it and they judge it. And they judge it as a 12-knot boat. Right? And then when I can show them a video of our fastest one running 34 knots and my drone being barely able to keep up, they're just, mind blown. And they didn't know that you could do that in something that wasn't, a planing hull.
Yeah.
And that's one of the benefits of our semi-displacement.
Yeah, that's funny. A boat that I sold last year to clients of mine that I'd been talking to for a little while. It wasn't until survey and sea trial day that we were out there running it and we were testing all the different increments at the RPMs, and we got it up to wide open throttle, and I believe it hit 26 or 27 knots. And the wife looked at me and she said, "Well, I got to be honest with you, Matt. All of my friends said you were lying to me. I told them you were probably lying to me. And here we are doing exactly what you said we were going to do." And I said, "Well, you make sure you go back and tell all your friends that I did not lie to you. And this boat really did do 26, 27 knots, whatever it was." And she said, "I didn't think there was any way this boat would do as fast as you said it was going to do." I said, "Yes."
I'd say 3 or 4 times a year, they look at the gauges and think that we manipulated it. And I'll say, somebody pull out a cell phone. I'll pull up Navionics. Here's the independent, we are cruising that fast. Yeah. So that all has to do with hull design, weight reduction, lifting of the boat to reduce wetted surface area. Stability, point A to point B over a long haul. Actually, not just how fast I can go like this through the water, but how fast I can get from here to here. And all that is included in that ratio of fuel burn and efficiency and all the things that kind of a lot of other, I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but a lot of others, let's just use it like that, might brush over to get you to buy the boat with a nice pillow on it or the nice shiny whatever. And that's not who we are as a company. You can pick your pillows and decorate the boat the way that you want, but we want to give you a quality boat that has great, not only timeless style, but ride and features and benefits that are going to really make you like being out there on the water.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how many... I've been doing it a bit longer than you, but I can't tell you how many times, I've got the lake house, I've got the, the ski house, I've got the condo in the city, I've got this, I've got that, and I want to add the boat and we're going to do this. And the reason for the bigger boats oftentimes are the family's not getting together at the ski house anymore because we want to be on the boat or the lake house or the whatever. Yeah. They sell that asset. They take that money. They get the bigger boat because everybody wants to be on the boat. Everybody wants to see the pig swimming in the Bahamas.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All those types of things. So I wrote down a few questions. We've covered everything today other than one, which I meant to ask you second. And I guess I'm going to ask you last before I open up to any closing comments on your end. But why are you here at Marlow Marine?
Well, the as I talked about earlier, just being honest and open and direct with people. When I decided to sell my family business and go into something else, I was about to go into insurance sales until a good friend of mine who'd been working here with you for a while said, "That sounds boring. You should come and sell boats with me." And I said, "I think that sounds way more fun than insurance sales as well." And so after talking to him for a little bit, after doing some research on the Marlow and Marlow competitors, and I went to him and I said, "Man, these are pretty impressive vessels." He said, "Well, that's why I've been working here for so long and think that you should come and do this with me." And he knew that I had a love of the water and boating. He and I used to do small boating together back in our 20s. And so I jumped on aboard, pun intended. I jumped aboard and haven't looked back. And it's been a great 4 years, and I look forward to 15 to 20 more years of it. And I think the Marlow boat is a great product. You said earlier you don't want to talk bad about other brands. There's no talking bad about other brands. There's a reason why there's thousands of boat brands out there, right? They all serve a purpose for the right buyer and the right owner. Being preferential to Marlow and thinking that it's a great product isn't saying anything negative about other boats and other manufacturers. It's saying, here's what we have to offer. But at the same time, I have clients that I've spoken to that have said, that's just not the boat for me. I said, no problem. Tell me what boat's for you.
Right.
This is my job. My job is to help you find what works for you, and what works for you may not work for him or for you or for me. So the goal is to just help people get into the right fit, the right boat, the right size, the right budget, and help them start living the dream, no matter what that dream looks like.
Mm-hmm. Any questions for me before we wrap this up?
I don't think so. We've covered a lot today. I know you try to keep some stuff in the bank for the next session and everything else. So, yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for spending time with us today. If you made it to the end, please like and subscribe if you learned something or found this, worth your time. And if you would like us to cover anything yachting related, shoot me an email and we'll put it in queue if it makes sense. Thanks again. Take care. Eric Gervais, Matt McHugh, Marlow Marine Sales, and Everything Yachting. Take care.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us at Everything Yachting. I hope you've enjoyed diving into the yachting world today. If you've enjoyed or learned something, please subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for more. Until next time, my friends, healthy families, happy memories, and may fair winds and smooth seas guide your future yachting adventures.